Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a best-selling author, a coach from Dubai, UAE, Mr. Phil Bedford. Phil, welcome to the show.
Fantastic to be here, Ashutosh, and hello, everybody.
Thank you. Phil is an entrepreneurial coach. He's a rebel. He calls himself the Rebel Networker. He's the founder of master franchise Asentiv GCC. He's the author of several books, including The 7 Deadly Startup Sins and Branding Schmanding. So today we're going to speak to him more about his books than a lot of his other avatars that he has. But before we start, Phil, tell me briefly about your journey from a dishwasher to a master's degree in engineering. What were your key learnings and challenges?
The reason I was a dishwasher was because I failed at school.
Okay.
So basically, I didn't realize that you actually had to revise for your exams. I kind of thought you just had to know it all. Mm-hmm. So when I turned up and failed all my exams, I was the same as a lot of kids. You know, our parents wanted to see us go to university and get an education.
Yeah.
So I kind of put myself back through college by washing dishes 5 days a week on split shifts. So while everyone else was having fun, I was going to college.
Amazing.
Went through college, ended up with a master's degree in civil engineering. But I decided that really wasn't for me. So I kind of fell into business. But I would say at the end of the day, my learnings, Ashutosh, was really, you know, at the end of the day, a degree is just a ticket to the ballpark. You know, there's plenty of ways into the ballpark. And one of them is just drive, finding something you love, you know, and really surrounding yourself with people that you can learn from instead of textbooks. So that's what I would say. Anyone can be successful. You just need to learn in different ways.
Amazing, amazing. So let's start by talking to you about your first book, Branding Schmanding. Before I get into your books, are your books available on Amazon and other platforms?
They are, absolutely, yes. So there's the Notion Press platform in India, but also Amazon as well.
Wonderful.
And I believe the other ones like, you know, iTunes and all that.
So I'm going to ask all my viewers and listeners to go and check out Phil Bedford's books. So let's start by asking you about the book. Tell me about the book and your hypothesis to write it.
Well, with all my books, what I really did was listen to where people get most confused, or from my own confusion in my journey as a small business owner.
Right.
And Branding Schmanding really came about because I kept hearing branding experts, you know, obviously selling their product, and they're very talented individuals, but a lot of small business owners were going out and buying their logo on Fiverr. Or such platforms and saying, well, why do I need to pay, you know, $20,000 for branding? I don't get it. And so it became obvious that people didn't really understand what branding was and why it was important. So the whole concept of schmanding kind of, it's a made up word, means kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
And so the idea of branding schmanding was really what I saw people doing, which was saying, I don't really get it. What is it? So I thought I'd just revisit it from, not from an expert's perspective, but from a small business owner's perspective. It was just trying to find out what it was.
Very interesting. So is marketing a science or an art?
That's an interesting one. I would say to be an art is normally something you're natural at, and a science means that anybody can be good at it if they learn. So I would say it'd be both, wouldn't you?
Okay. And my next question to you, Phil, is what goes into building a successful brand?
For me, there's a number of elements, but I think one of the most important is a couple of key things I would say, particularly now, and that's to be congruent everywhere you show up. So I can't tell you how many people I've seen on social media, and they look like the most professional people on the planet. And then I'll jump on a Zoom call with them, and it looks like they've just walked out of the gym and haven't bothered washing for 6 weeks. Wow. And it's you know, and that damages your brand. You know, and I think so. For me, it's really being congruent. You know, understanding that it's not what you say, it's what people experience that's your brand. So it's what they say and they feel, not what you think it is.
Well, it's been famously said that branding is all about what people speak about you when you step out of the boardroom.
There you go, right.
Well said. Wonderful. So the other thing about brands is that, you know, I've often said brands are living beings and you got to keep on investing in them. My question to you is, how can brands stay relevant for a long period of time?
So we had a bit of a break up there.
I can repeat the question. My
yes,
question
please.
is that, brands are living beings. My question to you is, how can brands stay relevant for a long period of time?
So there's obviously some experts. I think probably one of the best brands out there that's become relevant is Madonna, right? Mm. The way Madonna has changed over the years and adapted to a new client base, and she's remained concurrent with the people that have always loved her and still appeal to the youngsters, Mm. So I think it really is being prepared to really keep attuned with your target market, your audience, mm-hmm. and to what their needs and requirements are. And then, as long as you're staying true to who you are, of course, mm-hmm. Your brand has to be true to who you are. Otherwise, you're something else.
Correct.
But yeah, just really understanding how people are, how you can connect to those people going forward with new platforms and new medias. And, mm-hmm. You said something, you always have to be investing in your brand. And I think, one of the reasons, if anyone goes back to some of my old material, mm-hmm. It's the video is not as good quality, and I look different, and a lot of people take their old stuff offline.
Yeah,
I've kept it on there for a reason, because I think we all need to see part of our branding journey and understand that we don't just immediately snap our fingers and we're the best. We can actually have a journey.
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of credibility in that.
Amazing. And yet, you just spoke about different social media platforms. My question too is, how are brands adapting to this incredible opportunity and yet challenge of the digital world?
Well, I mean, you've got a broad spectrum, of course. You've got people that are jumping on and really leveraging it, and then you've got people that aren't. And I think that's always been the case. I think COVID particularly has really woken people up to the option of being online. I mean, I live in the UAE, and prior to COVID, we didn't have access to Zoom, for example. Mm-hmm. So, this conversation we're having now wouldn't have been possible. But, we were lucky enough that the government had the foresight to free that up, open it up, and they've kept it there, and it's been fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I remember sitting there actually at the beginning of COVID thinking, should I get the year subscription to Zoom, or should I just wait and see what happens? And do the free one. 3 years later, nearly all my life's on Zoom, and so I think that you've just got to be willing to, as a brand, again, listen and see what's happening, and try and be at the tip of the spear rather than too late.
Well said. My other question to you is that for a brand, or whether for a consumer brand or a personal brand, how do people determine which social media platform to work with? Because there are so many of them.
Target market is, I believe on most of the platforms you have to have a presence, and you guide that, of course, by where are your customers. And if you're saying, well, I'm only on LinkedIn because I like LinkedIn, but all your customers are on TikTok, and you're not on TikTok, well, good luck running a business or a brand. So it's finding out where they are and having a presence on there, really. That would be my tip.
Wonderful. My next question is about your next book, which is 7 Deadly Startup Sins. Tell me about your book and what made you write it.
This was interesting because I would say one of the reasons I'm still here 14 years later in business. And by the way, my dynamic was, when I launched a business, I had $11,000 in my pocket. Mm-hmm. And I'd had small side businesses before. It was my first big business. So I didn't have the investment or the experience around me that some people are blessed with, family businesses and lots of money. So I launched this business with, like I said, about $11,000 in my pocket. And 14 years later, I'm still in business. Now, if you know this, I'm sure you're aware of the statistical failures of how many businesses fail.
Correct.
So given that, really, I didn't have a lot of chance, but I'm here. And one of the reasons I'm here is because I plugged into a community of entrepreneurs who told me, Phil, I made this mistake. I did this. I did that. And so I was humble enough to listen and say, I don't know it all. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is that they won't listen. So the 7 deadly startup sins was really what I did is I reached out to my network and I said, okay, guys, can you share what is the one biggest mistake you made in business?
Yeah.
And a number of them came back with 3 or 4. But what I found was it came down into 7 categories.
Okay.
And so I thought, you know what? Yeah, a little bit like your mum, right? Your mum says to you, you know, don't touch that, it's hot.
Yeah.
And, you know, well, if you're really smart, we wouldn't touch it. But what do? We go and touch it, we get burned. Yeah. So really the idea was to say to people, look, if you are humble enough to try and want an easier journey, here's all the mistakes that thousands of people have made. So you can at least not make the mistakes. Although what we find is most people make 1 or 2 because they think they know it all. But hopefully they'll read it before they make more. Correct.
And do you want to tell us which are these 7 sins?
Oh, well, actually, they're in categories, to be fair. So under each category, there's numerous. One of them would be unrealistic expectations. You know, just because I'm really, really good at what I do and I love my job and I love my passion, clients are going to walk through the door and everyone's going to, it isn't going to happen. Unless you're super, super, super lucky, clients don't walk through the door. You know, another one would be, you know, network or no work. You know, the ability to build and leverage a network to solve issues rather than trying to do it all yourself. So there's just 2 simple ones. But under each of those categories, there's numerous other points.
Wonderful. So one of the other questions that is often asked from startup entrepreneurs is, should a founder go solo or should she or he have a co-founder?
I think for both examples, you're going to see people that say this was great, and you're going to get other people that say Absolutely. Don't do it. Yeah. You know, I think the thing about doing it on your own is, you know, you are the ultimate decision maker. Although, you know, then it becomes a little bit lonely. There's something lovely about bouncing the idea off somebody else. But I've also met loads of people that have had co-founders and it's ended nastily. So all I would say from my network that advised me was, if you do have a co-founder, make sure you have a legal agreement on what happens should you decide to split, so you can maintain all the goodwill and you both know where your contribution is. What are both of your contributions to that business? Yeah. So it's clear what you're both doing, what the expectations are, and there's no confusion. So I would say that would certainly help partnerships stay together. Very interesting. But for both examples.
Very, very. I agree with you, but I just wanted your perspective. The next question that is often asked is, should a startup founder, bootstrap as long as possible, or should they raise money whenever it's available?
Again, I think this depends on your network and what resources you have available to you. I bootstrapped. I sourced out of my own pocket. I never had a business loan. I don't owe money, never did to anybody else. So the great news is that it becomes tougher that way because you're dealing with less resources. So you need to be cleverer. There may be a stage when a business needs to get exponential growth and then you can reach out to investment. But I would say whatever level you're reaching for investment, whether it's right at the beginning or later, be clear what kind of investment you're getting and under what conditions. Because there's different kinds of investors, some of whom might hamstring you and others who will actually support you. So it's also really worth getting some advice on the kind of investment if you're going to go that way.
Well said. One more question regarding startups, and then I'll move to some other work that you're doing. Another question which is often asked is, when should a startup founder start to scale up?
I mean, there's studies that say, okay, you got to decide here. Are you looking at scaling up or expanding? And there's certain differences in the business. Sure. But you're normally looking at around the sort of 5th to 7th year, I think, when businesses tend to take that next jump. But it would be certainly in a point where you can afford to handle the excess bottom line requirements. So, if you're suddenly going to scale and jump and you have to get more employees, well, you now need more revenue. And that, what I would say, is normally where most people start looking at investment.
Interesting.
To take them through there.
Wonderful. So, Phil, let me now move on to some other questions. In my introduction, I said that you refer to yourself as the rebel networker. Help me understand what you mean by the rebel networker, because the two words are contradictory.
Possibly. I mean, it was actually a nickname that was given to me by a friend of mine who was a branding guy, oddly enough. Okay. And what we were looking at was three words that kind of described yourself. Mm-hmm. And the thing is with networking historically is a lot of people don't really understand networking. They think networking is handing out business cards. Mm. That's not networking. That's handing out business cards.
Correct.
Networking is what happens next. Mm. And people don't realize that you and I here are networking, Ashutosh. Mm. When you're sat with your family or your best friends, you're networking. When you're in the gym and you're chatting to someone, you're networking. When you're at a business event, So networking is when we're with people. Mm. And if we are in those relationships in a way of trying to help each other, that's a great way to network. Yeah. But unfortunately, people didn't see that. The other thing is in a personal life, I used to like to do slightly crazy things. So I used to teach kite surfing, I jump off bridges, I do, things that people wouldn't expect. Mm. And my friend said to me, says, Phil, you're a bit like the rebel networker. Mm. You're challenging what people think it is, but at the same time, you love it. So that's where it came from. And it just stuck.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You're also the master franchise of Asentiv GCC. Tell me what is this and what kind of work do you do there?
So Asentiv is an entrepreneurial-based consultancy company based out of Switzerland, Ascona in Switzerland. We're 19 years old, and we are in currently, I think, 15 countries globally. So in a nutshell, we are a franchise base. Mine is the GCC, and I'm regularly, by the way, looking for people to work with. So anyone else that wants to start a business and get involved with what I do, reach out. Mm-hmm. But it sort of sits in the space, really, Ashutosh, that it solves the following problems. Mm-hmm. Many small businesses, when they launch, they have 2 or 3 core challenges. Number one, they tend to have limited money to get clients. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so leaning towards how do you get clients when you have limited funds is our niche. Right. We specialize in things like networking, building your brand congruency, but also how do you get on the TV, radio? How do you network? How do you get more referrals? Anything through people is our niche. And so we have an 8-session program over 50 hours that's specialized for small business owners and, by the way, corporates that want to leverage networking. The other side we hit is building communities of entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. It can be so lonely in a small business, no matter what level you're at. Mm-hmm. And so to be in a community of like-minded, driven entrepreneurs who want to help and support each other and share from their own experiences is so important, so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And the other one, of course, is, just direction. To be on the business rather than in the business. And what Asentiv does is, rather than hope people naturally know how to do it, mm-hmm. We provide that ecosystem where people can access all those tools. So that's what Asentiv is.
Amazing. So I have time for one more question. And this is for all the people who will listen to our conversation and view our conversation. What would you say, based on your amazing journey, starting off of paying for your own college education, by washing dishes, to a master's degree in engineering, to doing so many amazing things, to writing several books. What would you say are 3 lessons you would like our viewers and listeners to take back from your journey and our conversation?
It's the more you network up, the more you surround yourself with successful people who are more successful than you become the average of that group. So always reach out for people who are more successful, because naturally as human beings, we become the average. Okay. So find the people who've done what you want to do, network up. Secondly, where you start doesn't dictate where you end up.
Yeah.
Just because you haven't had success today doesn't mean you won't tomorrow. So keep stretching, keep looking, keep learning. And learning doesn't mean necessarily sitting in a classroom. Yeah. It means understanding you're humble enough not to know it all. And you can learn from anybody. Mm-hmm. So learn from anybody. Mm-hmm. And I think one of my biggest ones being in this part of this part of the world was, your model of the world doesn't mean it's right. Mm. Just because you do something one way doesn't mean that it's the best. And again, if you can be
wonderful.
I think we froze a little bit there.
Yeah. Phil, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for your amazing 3 pieces of advice, which is surround yourself with successful people or people who are better than you. Network up, which is basically second, your advice was keep learning. And third one's don't just assume that your own ecosystem or what your own learnings are always right. Thank you so much.
If I could just add on the language there, Ashutosh, I wouldn't say people that were better than you. Mm-hmm. I would say people that are more successful in whichever way you judge success.
Okay, I stand corrected. So people who are more successful than you. But thank you for speaking to me about your books, both Branding Schmanding and 7 Deadly Startup Sins. Thank you also for speaking to me about why you were called the Rebel Networker and about Asentiv. Finally, thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me here today. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.